Hello, let's talk about deploying Windows 10. I'm bringing up my virtual machine as I do this. All right, so if you click on Lesson 5, we talked about installing Windows 10 previously. Now we're going to talk about deploying Windows 10. So let's get started. All right, primarily what we're going to talk about here is the Windows ADK, which again, you downloaded in the previous lab. And this toolkit allows you to do things to deploy Windows 10. So let's get started. Let's start breaking it down. So there's various tools built into the WADK. If you have downloaded and installed it, it will show up in your Start menu down to Windows Kits. And if you click on this, here is some various tools that we're about to talk about. All right, so first of all, and this isn't a complete list, but these are some of the important tools. There's an application compatibility toolkit. This is for anyone preparing to upgrade to Windows 10 and you have a bunch of applications that the company uses or the enterprise uses, and you want to make sure those applications will work in Windows 10. You can look up in this database that application and whether or not there's any compatibility issues. We talked slightly about the user state migration tool, the USMT. Again, what's built for is primarily for moving user profiles. It creates a portable user profile so you can pick it up off of one device, blow out that device, install another operating system, and then migrate the profile over to the new operating system. All right. The one we're going to spend a lot of time on in the lab, and a lot of time, is DISM. So this is what we can do is run DISM as a tool from the command line. It's a command line tool. Well, I might as well finish my thought there. So if I type DISM and then we'll do a question mark. Oh, that's right. You needed to run it as an administrator. My fault. Which I tell you to do in the lab. I just simply forgot just now. So if I click on Windows Kits, right click on the deployment imaging tools, and I run as administrator, I'll get the yes, no. I'll say yes. And there we are. Now we're in as administrator. And if I do DISM, what's going to do is give me a big list of all the various things I can do, which is quite a bit of things. I can make an image. I can update an image. I can add software to an image. I can add registry commands. I can add updates. I can mount the WIM, which we will do, into a folder, so I can add files if I so desire. Then I have to apply the changes to the image. What else can I do? Anyway, so there's lots you can do with the DISM. It's an important tool for an administrator that's managing images. All right. It used to be called Imagine ImageX back in the Windows 7 days, but now we use the term DISM. Windows PE, which we should have got familiar with last lab. You should have booted to Windows PE after you made a Windows PE DVD. Again, it's a pre-install environment for Windows. It has a desktop in the background, a blank desktop, and it's just a command prompt. But it's command prompt with administrative access. And you now can do whatever you want to the storage drive. We're going to have to make the image with Windows PE. You can't make an image of a system that you're currently logged in as. You have to boot into a different system to make the image. That way it's a clean image. All right. Windows Imaging Configuration Design, ICD. This is for provisioning packages for Windows 10 devices. So not necessarily laptops per se, but particularly for phones or your mobile devices, tablets. It's for being able to provision those out. Volume Activation Management Tool. Again, it's a tool. You can install it in a device and make it a temporary server. And to allow volume activation. That way you can do volume activation even if you don't have AD. Obviously, be preferred if you use Active Directory, but If you do not have Active Directory, you can kind of set this tool up, and other devices can hit it and get their activation. Performance and assessment tools, multiple tools to optimize and measure performance. So these are just tools, again, to measure performance, which we'll talk about next lesson, performance tuning, though we really won't play with this tool. This is for if you set up Windows, you can run this tool to kind of look to see Windows 10 to see how the hardware is able to handle it, if it can handle the upgrade to Windows 10 primarily. Windows System Image Manager, SIM. So this software is built as a GUI software that you can do all those things I was talking about what DISM can do, but it's a GUI interface instead. So you can add drivers, you can add updates, you can create configuration sets, you can make unattended installs, or make a distribution share with SIM. All right, so we have Windows Deployment Services, which is a server-based service. It can help push images to the desktop. You need DHCP, DNS, Active Directory, Directory Service, and then TFS partitions to do it. So it uses images, WIM format, Windows image. That will install a new OS. So it also has a boot image with a WIM of Windows PE. So that way you can install that image to get the initial installation going. You can capture an image with it. Snapshot OS deploy and it can also run sysprep. So this is a service that runs on a server that kind of is all a one-stop shop that's built in called Windows Deployment Services. It has some other things too. If you do want to boot up, you can use the PXE boot series. That way the PC will get a IP address. It'll that way you can get to the WDS server. Then you can download the boot image and run it from RAM. And then you can, after you're booting up from the initial WIM image, then you can pick the true image, the actual image of the operating system you want to install, and it gets pushed down. All right. There's other tools that come along with it. There's a config manager, so that way you can have server-side config management, and you can take inventories. There's the MDT, which is Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. It's primarily for scripting your installs, making it all in one stop shop. So if you're an administrator and you want to send your help desk folks out to do a quick install, you can set this up. You can set up a script for them. And there's BCD Boot, which is a command line tool to boot from a virtual hard disk. A tool that we're going to be using quickly in our lab is sysprep. We can use it to prepare a machine to be image. If we run generalization, which we will, we scrub the computer's SID. We do other cleanup ops. We clean out the temp directory. We're making the image smaller, which is a good thing. We're taking away unnecessary file space. We have the OOBE, out-of-box experience. Again, we talked about that before, but that whole thing when it comes up and it asks for a new user and all that stuff, that way when we put it down on the user's desk, they feel like they're getting a new machine. It gives that feel, right? We can also audit mode. Drivers and apps can be added. There are limitations to it. Drivers must be used for plug and play. Activation clock can only be reset 3 times. So with sysprep, we reset the activation. And Microsoft quickly realized this could be used as a workaround. So what they do instead is they reset the clock. Or when you do reset the clock, you don't do it 3 times. All right. Well, one of the unfortunate parts here is you can't use it with encrypted files. You're going to lose those encrypted files. And finally, we have Windows to Go. Windows to Go is a nice utility that you need at least Enterprise to use. What happens is from the control panel, you can on a Windows 10 Enterprise or higher, you can create a fully functional version of Windows 10 that runs on a USB. Right, that's pretty powerful. So I can plug that into a device. And if it's set to boot from the USB before the hard drive or anything else, it will boot up with Windows 10 running off the USB. All right, you're going to need to use the installed WIM from the Windows 10 installation, and of course the USB is formatted. You're going to lose all data on the USB. So that takes care of those issues. and that lesson. So until I talk to you again, bye.